Welcome back, dear listeners. Today on Dear Body, I'm Listening. I am joined by Dr. Amy Behimer. She is a doctor of pharmacy, a nationally board certified health and wellness coach, and a certified life coach who's also living with multiple sclerosis. After her diagnosis, Amy stopped chasing quick fixes and built what she couldn't find, a grounded, supportive way to make health and happiness feel doable, autoimmune disease and all. Her work is about helping people create habits that actually stick so they can feel more steady, more empowered, and more at home in their bodies. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with her. I can't wait to learn about her story and about any tips she has for you to help you along your journey. Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening today and tuning in. Today, I'm really excited to have with me Amy Behimer. She is a doctor of pharmacology, pharmacy.
Pharmacy,
She's
yep.
really smart and she does things with medicine. And she's transitioned to also being a life coach. And really, the vibe I get from her is more that she's a guide and helps you guide to figure out what you need for your lifestyle, how medicine, how everything, all these tools we have can really support you in a way that gives you freedom and health in a new way that's not really traditional. And I'm really excited to have this conversation. So, welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes. So, I always like to ask just kind of anything you would like me to tell, or anything you would like my listeners to know about you, anything about your story. And I'm happy for as much or as little as you want
Oh,
to give.
goodness. Well, you mentioned some of the highlights. I mean, if we go in chronological order, the first time I heard the word autoimmune, I work with people with autoimmune diagnoses. And the first time I heard the word autoimmune, I was in my teens and I was diagnosed with an autoimmune skin condition.
Mm.
And, fast forward a few years, I was in pharmacy school and I started learning everything that can go right in the body and everything that can go wrong. And so, again, this autoimmune word came up, and I'm like, wait, I have one of those. And then I'm learning, some scary at the time other autoimmune diagnoses, as well as the fact that they tend to cluster. And they
Mm.
tend to, if you get diagnosed with one, then you may get diagnosed with another one. And so I kind of had this impending sense that, oh gosh, maybe my body was trying to tell me something with that first diagnosis. And it was in my mid 20s that I got my second diagnosis. It was a Graves autoimmune thyroid disease.
Mm.
And I still say that that was like a whisper from my body. And a few years later, at age 27, she was screaming at me and got my attention with a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, which is for short MS, if people aren't familiar with it. But it's also an autoimmune disease. And, you know, if you're listening, I hope that you aren't one of the ones impacted, but just statistically, the amount of Americans and really across the world, the rate of autoimmune disease is going up. It's happening in younger and younger people. And so the chances of being impacted by it is huge. You or a family member. But yeah, like I said, that was a scream from my body, mostly because with MS, one of the symptoms is it impacts your mobility. It can. And, that really scared me. I was active, I was a runner, and it just scared me and really woke me up. So that's kind of where the second part of my story came in is I was like, okay, I have these really good medications. This one, it's called a disease modifying therapy where, it does its best to slow the progression and to keep things at bay. I call that my defense, but I was like, I also want to go on offense and what can I be doing? So it sent me back to school for learning about functional medicine and lifestyle and all these pieces that we have more control over. And so that is where the health and wellness coaching came in. And you mentioned life coaching as well, because for many of us, yes, there's the health part of it, but there's also the mindset piece of who am I going to be in this world with a diagnosis that is can feel heavy, it can feel unpredictable, it can feel uncertain. And so there is, just this skill set of how do I learn how to function and not let it take me down.
Oh my gosh, so it's like, so I have five autoimmune. They're chronic illness autoimmune.
Yeah.
that's kind of all loosely together.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that it definitely, because it's overwhelming once you get one diagnosis, let alone multiple. And I mean, MS, luckily there is like a drug and they have been researching it for a while there is a medication that does help. Um, but there's a lot of invisible illness as well. Like, and people look at you and they'll probably look at like, oh, you don't have MS or
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
just visually, like if you're smiling, you don't look like you're in chronic pain,
Yeah.
then it's kind of hard to tell people how you're feeling. And there's a big disconnect with everything. And I just
Yeah.
want you to talk about like what your experience has been personally in that, and also how you've used some of these coping mechanisms yourself, if you
Yeah.
don't mind.
Well, what you just mentioned made me think of just recently. I'm at 14 years. I'm going to be 42 this year, 14 years with this MS diagnosis. And, my biggest shift came when I really started realizing that I could manage my mindset. I could have some influence over how I think and how I feel, and that I wasn't just being handed this kind of doom,
Mhm.
so to speak. So the moment for me was when a coach for the first time, I said something in passing as if it was true, like, well, yeah, my life will always be a little bit worse or a little bit more unhealthy. And she kind of challenged that and she said, that's optional. That feels true. And I could probably get everybody to agree with me in my life that, oh yeah, this is a worse thing. But if I believe it's a worse thing, I'm going to create that it makes my life a little bit worse. And so it started with just a baby belief that maybe it's possible my life doesn't need to be worse. And, just that little shift of possibility put me into a feeling of curiosity, which then I think was what led to one thing, then led to the next thing. And so now looking back, like back then, I would say you can't outrun, you can't outnourish a crappy mindset. Like no matter how perfect I did things, because believe you me, I was trying to eat, quote, perfect and move perfect and do these things perfectly. But when it was being driven by feelings and thoughts that again were not listening and trusting and accepting and peaceful, then it was no wonder that I wasn't living a life that was peaceful. And so fast forward now, and what you mentioned is what made me think of that is that I recently, at 14 years, I was in my neurologist's office, and I am very objectively progressing in certain ways. I have a type of MS called primary progressive MS.
Okay.
And so when I was diagnosed 14 years ago, I was running 20 miles. And so you fast forward 14 years, and walking a couple is tough. And so there are very real progression markers, but I have gotten so good at my outlook and my mindset and how do I redirect and things where I noticed that even my doctor, who knows I have this primary progressive disease, I would see in the notes where he said, well, she says she's progressing, but she looks great. And I realized, gosh, I think that I have almost gotten too good. And maybe I need to bring in the realness of what's happening. And really we changed up my therapy based on that honesty. So I really can relate when you're saying people are looking at you and then add in that I have a pretty good capability to find the good in certain situations that I was like, whoa, Amy, you've almost gone too far.
I mean, so there's many things I want to say. There's so many gold nuggets in there. But first, for those anyone that is listening that isn't familiar with MS, sorry, I am familiar. I have family members that have it or
Yeah,
close, like they're not actually blood, but like my best friend's mom has had it for years. Can you
yeah,
talk a little bit more about MS, what it is and what it looks like, especially with your case, the progression?
for sure. Yeah. So autoimmune disease it's interesting because the commonality is that, our body, our sweet immune system, it thinks it's doing its job. It thinks that it's protecting us from a foreign invader, and but it's mistaken. It think our native tissue, it is marking as foreign, and so it kind of goes to work on attacking it. So if it happens to be the thyroid tissue that it thinks is foreign, then you'll see thyroid issues. If it happens to be skin, you'll see vitiligo or other things. So with MS, it thinks that the lining of our nerves, it thinks it's foreign, and so it will degrade that. It's called myelin. And so what happens is all the connections from where, the nerves leave our central nervous system and go out, anywhere that sheathing is damaged, then it has trouble conducting electricity down there to send the signal to the muscle, pick up that leg, move that thing. And so it can look so different in different people, but mobility can be a common thing that is affected when that happens. It's sometimes with eyes, sometimes with numbness, tingling, weakness, but it's nervous system related. And so there's a couple different types. A majority of people have what they call relapse remitting. So you kind of have this flare or this relapse that takes you out. It kind of
Mhm.
is sudden, and a lot of people end up being hospitalized, and then you hopefully have some level of recovery. And the medications are really getting good at limiting those number of relapses. I mean, where it has come even since I graduated pharmacy school, I mean, the medications are vast. The smaller portion of people have something that right now is called primary progressive, and I say right now because they may get rid of that classification at some point, and they're not quite sure what they'll do with the labeling. Just like what you said, all these labels are very transient because we learn new things every day. But with primary progressive, you don't have these big relapses, but instead it's just more of this kind of steady decline. And you saw I hesitated to say that because there's a lot of things that it could be a steady decline, but with changes I've made in terms of lifestyle, I see it doesn't necessarily need to be a steady decline, but that's the difference that it looks like a little bit.
And then is there a lot of pain with that as well, or is it something different than like
But
traditional flare?
so fatigue and I call fatigue the symptom that binds with autoimmune disease because so many
Mhm.
people have it. But fatigue and like the brain fog and the cognitive fog, I would say is more universal. Pain, yes, people do experience pain. Fortunately, I don't know what happened, but pain is not a part of my story. And so, but yes, some people do experience quite a bit of pain with the flare.
And when you said that, you got really good at being positive, your work really worked well, that then you also needed to kind of then not be more real because you're living it, but to express to people the level that you were
Yeah,
at so you could get like the care that can be more optimized other
yeah.
than just because that, I mean, I know for me and all of my things, it was really hard to get a diagnosis with these things because they're less researched, but the labs look good because if you have lipedema, your labs look really good. I don't, I'm in chronic pain all the time, and my level of pain is probably 7 to 10, where they're like 10, you'd be in the hospital. But like for chronic pain people, it
Get
needs to
used
be
to it.
15. You need to be much higher. And when I have gone to the hospital for things, it hasn't really helped. So you do get used to um, good, bad, and different. It's kind of neutral of still living your life and being pleasant and doing things. And people look at like, you can't see pain, you can't see this progression, you can't see that. So there is that balance. And I'm sure working with women and men, whoever you work with autoimmune, that probably does come up. Like, how much do you just be like, okay, I really am, I also have hypermobility issues. So,
Yeah,
being around people and getting upright sometimes is like takes a lot of energy. And
yeah,
um, so then, that there's a fine line. I have not figured it out. I have no idea
Yeah.
what that balance is to be like, I want to be
Yeah.
social, but I need to take care of myself without flares. So
Yeah.
what is your kind of take, personal or even with clients? I'm sure you see this a lot, like how
Yeah.
much to be gracious and how much to be truthful.
That's a really, gosh, that's a real, I don't know if I've been asked that question. That's a really good
Okay.
question. And I think, the ultimate marker for, the world has so much health advice, right? Like we are in an infobesity crisis with books and podcasts, and you and I both have podcasts, so we
Yeah.
are partially contributing to it. But part of it is like, so much of it is one way, right? This advice, like try this, do this. And that's why these conversations are so important, or that's why when I coach with people, it will always be a human interaction back and forth because there's so much nuance. But to answer that question, I would instead say that the answer wouldn't be that to disclose this amount or to say this when, but instead to get really good at tapping into how it felt when you interacted with these people or that people and shared this versus shared that. So you may have your people, like I have two people in my life, my mom and my husband, who they are the ones that are going to get the true raw, this is hard text, just I need to get it off my chest. I made a deal with myself that if they're going to get those texts, that when I have those moments that are good, they deserve those ones too. So
Mm.
they'll also get the ones that, gosh, this is good. But like I learn from them, when I share this way, when I share that way, they are like my safe place and I feel good. Different other layers of friends or coworkers or like you almost have to give it a try and trust that your body may tell you, oh, this is safe to share there, or this is safe to share there. Because some people, they could be an amazing friend in so many ways, but that may not be their strength of being there, holding space, or they may be those friends that they want to fix it and they want to they want to give you a solution or say it's not that bad. And so I would say just start to learn like where not everyone's going to be the same. Some people they're close enough to you that I think it's worth a good honest conversation of, when you say this, I don't love it. But at some point it's kind of like, what how do I feel? The ultimate goal is really trusting how you feel at different times and with different people and recognize not everyone's going to be the same and you'll notice you're being drawn back to those ones that make you feel maybe seen. Or sometimes I have some friends I like when they challenge me. I'd be like, oh, I couldn't do that, and one friend's like, oh yes, you can. And if someone else said that, I'd be like, no, you don't know. But I know her, and it's just like, again, trust that your body is giving you those signs of where it's safe to share and maybe where it's just not, it's okay to say I'm doing fine. And the healthcare
I
team, I think maybe needs to know more the nitty gritty.
Yes, definitely. And I like everything that you're saying. That's so true. Because you really do need to know your audience because, like, everyone is different. Everyone has different strengths and challenges. And when you're going through the hard times, because we all have these down days, like, I know for myself, like, things would be like great one day. And then the next day, I'm like, I could barely do anything. And over time that really kind of
Yeah,
that got when especially when I was undiagnosed, I was like, what is wrong with me? So
yeah,
the mental noise. So to
yeah,
find a few people that you can really share your
yeah,
experience with, and then find a community and
yeah,
that has shared experiences, even if it's not the
yeah,
same diagnosis, because it does matter what audience you put it in. Because if you're
yeah,
wanting someone that is unable to give you that support, then that's gonna fuel that kind of negative mindset that you were talking
yeah,
about, that there is no, like, it's, oh my God, it's gonna get worse. No one understands, no one cares. Because
yeah,
autoimmune disease, I speak for myself, and I think a lot of people I know, it can be very lonely because
yeah,
even if you have like my husband and my friends, I've tell them that they don't really like they understand and they're loving, but unless you actually have it and go through it, it's
Yeah.
very hard to really understand.
Yeah.
And I think caregivers have a hard time. I mean, God love them. Like people that care about us don't want to see us in pain or
Yeah.
whatever, and
Yeah.
they don't really know how to help,
Yeah.
right? Not
Yeah.
always. So,
Well, and pay attention because I just think of like you could go into work and you could say, this is my reality, and so I'm going to talk about it, but like pay attention if it's draining to you. I mean, sometimes protecting your peace is where it's at. And so it's not that you're being dishonest, it's just you're being really smart about where do I feel that it's energizing to maybe share a layer deeper, or maybe a layer deeper, and kind of know what those layers are. Because yeah, just like we talked about in a couple different forms, everybody has different strengths, and to say, well, people need to hear what's real, that's not realistic. I mean, whether it was a diagnosis or not, we have these different layers. Come back to assessing, okay, I shared this with this person in this situation and I felt seen, I feel energized. Or if you are drained, maybe the way you're talking about it is a part of it. Like one of the things we always say, I say there's things we can't control, whether it's pain, whether it's mobility, whether it's the diagnosis. But when we shift to what we can control, one of those things always is how we talk about it. And not from a place of silencing ourselves, but sometimes adding more words and giving more attention and more light to the symptom or to the negative side, it's just downright draining. And so experiment with that and see, if lightening the light off of that side, if it helps.
oh, that's really wonderful. Like some key takeaways with that. And that's going to segue me into asking. So you said that one person, your like mentor or a teacher or someone gave you just kind of challenged you just a little bit.
Yeah,
So planted the seed. So how did you make that grow? So from that, like, because, sometimes we're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah,
And then like 5 minutes later, like, oh, this sucks or
yeah,
whatever. Like, we don't always have to take those nuggets and grow them. So
yeah.
how did you do it?
You're describing exactly if I had something on my tombstone, or if someone's talking about me behind my back, like, oh, what does Amy do? What's she all about? This is what I would want to be known for. What I want to be known for is the idea of, having a more positive mindset or being grateful or finding the silver lining. We're not born with that or not. That is a skill we can develop. I remember one time I was on a panel at a large conference and there was some pretty like influential people, and I feel like I was a little bit of a no name, but they were asking really tough questions and the audience was like, well, what about this? And these people, they were giving good answers, but they were kind of saying, well, it could be worse, or got to be grateful and see this. And it got to me and they're like, how do you do it? And I was like, well, it was, 4 years of therapy. And then now, this coaching. And like, I want to show the work behind these mindsets that you look at and you're like, well, that must be nice, right? Like, it must be nice to, you see an inspirational quote. And again, you're reading it, you're like, yes, but how do you carry that throughout the rest of your day? So I use the image of a seed, of a belief seed. So
Mm.
when we find a belief that may be paining us, mine was, well, life's always going to be worse, And so what is the seed of belief that I want to plant and then nurture? So water it, fertilize it, strengthen it. And we want to get that into a plant that is rock solid, a tree with roots. And that takes time and it takes repetition. And so one key thing, if you're out here and you're going to attempt to do this on your own, I love it. When you come up with your belief seed, it can't be my life is way better because I have MS. If I would have tried sweet 27-year-old Amy to believe that, my body would call, excuse my French, call the bullshit on what my brain is saying. My body would be like, no, your life is not better. So it starts with finding the thought that shifts you closer there, but that your body can get on board with. So adding words like possibility or I'm open to. So mine was, it's possible, Amy. It's just possible that life doesn't need to be worse. And so my body didn't react. My body was like, okay, she's not trying to tell us everything's fine. We can stick with it. So it was practicing that one, finding evidence for it. And when I say practice, I mean a repetition like you would go to the gym with biceps and do a bicep curl. That means writing it down, telling it to people, finding evidence of it in the world, sticking with it. And I have to say, it probably took me a decade, but at about a decade, if you today, Donna, tried to tell me that my life would be better if I didn't have this diagnosis, I have built that seed into a plant so strong that I would not believe you. That would bounce off me and I'd be like, you don't know what you're talking about. And so with some belief seeds that we plant, it's awesome because they just take to the soil and they just, they grow fast because it's almost like you just needed to hear a different way and your body's like, yes, this is so much better. I got it. I can find so much evidence for this. And I'd love to share what one of those is, but some of these take longer. Like I have a new belief seed that I'm nurturing. I'm about a year and a half in, and it's related to, that maybe slow is not only okay, just slowing down, creating more margins in life, kind of getting out of the hustle bustle, but maybe it's even better than fast, right? So like not keeping up. And I'm a year and a half in and I'm really, it's sticking. I love that one.
So that's perfect for anyone that has an autoimmune, but that's really what I have found. And anyone in these worlds of it,
Yeah.
this push through pain no gain mentality is really not great for people that have autoimmune. It
Yes.
actually does the exact opposite of what you want it to do. Having this grit and pushing through, you have grit. I think people that have autoimmune are the toughest people ever because you have to figure out so much and you really have to live your life with this thing. And
Yes.
then to push more is just too much. So to really, I love that one too, that rest even could be, so what, say it again, the rest could even be better
Oh, so mine is
or
slow.
slowing
But
down,
you're right about rest, but
but slowing down.
it
But slowing
started with
down is like even like the first, like people, and you can't go from I believe this to believe that. Like you can't go from, oh my God, I
yeah,
have to do every single thing every
yeah,
perfectly to, okay, I could be chill because it's not a
yeah,
true. Your body
yep,
is not going to respond. And when you're chilling, you're not going to be chilling because you're going to be creating more stress and
yeah.
shame. And so
Yes. So it started as
there's,
slow as fast, but then I have a friend in the military, and he said in the military say slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So that became mine.
oh,
But we have in my group, it's the club, we have a community garden, which is essentially a place in the community, like a post where when you want to practice or throw a little bit of fertilizer, because attention is like fertilizer for these thoughts. So if you're nurturing a belief seed, you come in there anytime and you say, okay, I'm practicing my belief seed, or I found evidence for my belief seed out in the world. And it's kind of a place where other people can witness it. And again, we are keeping it top of mind and we have this system to keep coming back to it. We're not just gonna, I call it forgetting on accident. We can have things we want to do, but we don't mean to stop going after our goal of doing these things, but it just can happen sometimes. But you nailed it with rest too. Rest is another one. Everybody, me, every single one of my clients, if we planted the belief seed that talk about our bodies, like bodies were listening. What if when our bodies are asking us for rest, it is the wisest, smartest thing. And we dropped the idea or the thought that you shouldn't need rest right now. What did you do so many people are like, why am I tired? And just for a little bit, what if we just believed that rest was a part of the process? That is worth nurturing because then when we're resting, like you said, we're not fighting it, but instead we're like, oh, I'm following the process. This is part of it.
yeah, that's really. I love that you're really honing in on how to actually change your beliefs because, there's a lot of things like love yourself, and you kind of talked about that too. But
Yeah.
when you have a progressive chronic illness,
Yeah.
whether it progresses or not, but it usually always does. There's nuance. I mean,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
going along, some doing your thing, eating
Yeah.
well, and then something new or unexpected pops up. So
Yeah.
there's you always have to be flexible at some point
Yeah.
because it's going to change. But that you break it down like how to really do this is really the thing of life. Like, how do you really
How?
change your mindset?
Yeah.
Because you said that perfectly. You can't lie to yourself.
Yeah.
You can say all the nice things you want, but if
Yeah.
you don't really believe it, your body
Yeah.
is like BS. This is total BS. And then it's just one other thing that you feel or
Yeah.
can feel that you're not accomplishing at,
Yeah.
or it's not working out. And
Yeah.
it's goes back to that other mindset of like, okay,
Yeah.
my life, this is how it's going to go.
Yeah.
And this is more negative
Yeah.
trajectory.
Well, and I'm so grateful it was the scientist in me that came to this because as a pharmacist, I mean, you go to the research for everything. You get really good at, what do studies say? Because when something is science-backed or it's proven in the research, what that means is that it's reproducible. That means we did it with this group. Now we have a pretty good hunch we could pick it up and do it with this group and it's still going to work. And so research-backed things give me confidence that, oh, this may work. And so I dove into the research behind habit change. I dove in and was like, what do we know about how do we change our habits? Because habits are what are making up 50% of our day. But here's the difference that most people don't talk about is that they're talking about outer habits, what we eat, how we move, what we do. My hypothesis when I was working on this for myself was okay, but we have inner habits. We have habits that nobody is seeing, but I'm habitually thinking things and I'm habitually feeling things. So, what if I take this body of evidence of this is what the research says on how we change habits, and I bring it over here to our thoughts and our feelings? And again, starting with me, I'm like, oh my God, this works. And I want to, it is different because I don't hear people talking about it like this, but all my clients are like, oh my gosh, it's neat. And I can't even take credit. It's the researchers out there that this works. And now there's so much more neuroscience that backs this up that we literally can change the chemistry of our brain and the tracks that our thoughts go down by repetition. These repetitions, this practicing and redirecting, to allow us to think and feel in ways that it doesn't even have to be great, but maybe just a little bit more peaceful.
And then you give people a space with your communities that you work with that to practice it because it is
Yeah,
one thing to be like, okay, I'm going to change this mindset. All right, so let's start with the possibility, even
yeah,
if, it's like, I don't really believe it's going to be true, but maybe it is possible, like wherever
yeah,
you are. But then you have a place that people can land and remember that that's what they wanted to do. Because how you
yeah,
said,
yeah.
I forget the exact words, but I loved it. Like you don't it's not intentional
Quit
that
on
you
accident.
quit
Quit
on
on
accident.
accident. Yeah. And again, that came from the research. Of all the research, if you set a goal, so you out there, you may want to feel different, you may want to think different, you may want to do some different things. Any of those are your goals. There are 6 research-backed reasons that goals fail. I have never found a reason that somebody got thrown off a goal that doesn't fit into one of these 6 reasons. So I designed my club, my coaching program to solve for those reasons. It's like, in school when you would maybe if you got lucky, you had the questions to the test ahead of time so you knew what to study. Those reasons are the things that we need to solve for. And so I always say I give you the questions to the test, I give you the answers to the test. You just have to show up and take the test. And so one of those 6 reasons is that we just forget about them. I mean, our brains they're processors, they're not storage containers. And so even though it feels so important in the moment to to, exercise 3 days a week or to maybe practice one of these belief seeds. When you get back out there in real life, it's all too much. We forget it. And so it's more about having a system to keep coming back to and to kind of keep the most important things. And it's got to be a system that bends with a reality of fluctuating pain and energy levels. And, you set yourself up so that you can show up for yourself on your best days and blow your mind, and you can show up for yourself on your worst days with so much compassion that you blow your mind.
That is so key because it's also those bad days, those worst
Hmm.
days, because that
Hmm.
you set that in, you kind of make it part of the process that by doing this, it's not just going to be good day, good day, good day.
Yeah.
It is with the fluctuation. And
Yeah.
even in the lower part that you're doing this, it's like I had a spiritual teacher, and this is where I got this, but like when you're climbing a mountain, there's peaks and valleys. So even when you're down, that doesn't mean that you're starting over. You're just kind
Yes.
of in this dip. And
Yes.
that kind of visual always is like, okay, I've done all these things. And because, you work with women and, people here listening have fatigue chronically,
Yep.
brain fog, different things
Yes.
happen,
Yes.
new things happen. Doctor,
Aging.
like
We're all aging.
aging, yeah,
Yeah.
aging, just life, and
Yep.
just, and
Yeah.
then all the rest of your life that you do,
Yeah.
like family dynamics, parents,
Yeah.
anything like that. So that it's still kind of you're kind of saying this is life, and this
Yeah.
is kind of how you can manage
Yeah.
this and still work towards what you really would like
Yeah.
to and change your thoughts because those really are like most of the time, I was a therapist and I said this tons to my clients, but like your brain sometime is or your thoughts are like a really like bad neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like you need to get out of there because the things that we say to ourselves because there's no barrier, we would never say that out loud. And if we
Never.
spoke those words out, be
Yep.
like, "Oh my gosh, how could you say that?" But
Yeah.
internally, we don't have that wall. We don't have that. So that you have given like a very scientific way to change your
Yeah.
habits, like
Yeah.
habits stack and do these things. And it worked on you and it's worked in your community is
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
kind of gold. It's very magical
Yeah.
to
And what I
be
try,
in that
oh, I'm
way.
glad it feels that way. So it is. Sometimes we're
Yeah.
in here and we're like, we're looking at each other. It's like it feels that way, and we do it for life. I mean, life has ups and downs. I mean, that's another belief seed that truly that I invite everybody to plant when they come work with me. But kind of what you talked about with the ups and downs, I believe life is meant to be 50-50, meaning we mirror nature, right? I mean, there's sun, there's night, there's blooms, there's dormancy. And so I just find a lot of peace that if I expect 50 up, 50 down, when I'm in the down, I'm not making it mean something has gone wrong. Instead, my belief that this is a part of being human, autoimmune disease or not, all of a sudden I feel more peace in the down and I'm not trying to get out of it. And so I love it. I have some clients, they go, I don't want 50-50. I want 80-20. And I say, that's great because if you want 80-20, try it on and see if it's working for you. But if the 20, if if it's too high and you'll know it's the right ratio if you feel good. Like for me, I fully believe my positive is way more than 50, but I like to believe it's 50-50 because then I feel like I am like making out like I'm so lucky because why do I feel like this is 80 good? Because life should be 50-50. But when it dips back down to that belief, I'm like, okay, don't freak out, Amy. Like this is life. This is humanness. And it's just such a peaceful thought. Like that's how you know if it's a belief seed you want to plant. Like if you try it on and you're like, what if I believed this? God, if you like feel like you can exhale and you feel relief, that's a good one. That is totally worth it.
I love that you're also giving a lot of semantic clues for yourself. Like when we were talking about if you're talking to people, do you feel energy spiral
Yeah.
up or do you seeing spiral down. If you're with your test out what your truth is for your belief seed, how does it make you feel? Is there a peace in that? Because also getting in touch with a body that has some
Yeah.
illness, sometimes I know for me, I've gone through stages where I'm like, oh my God, I did all this stuff and it still didn't work. My body's failing me. I was angry at my body, I mean,
Yeah.
but, and then there's some days, but it's less. But, depending on the stage of where you enter this work with you or enter the autoimmune world, you were very young. I was really sick, but I had no reference for it. So, I would not tell older till I had some like more clinical reference for it. So things
Yeah.
made sense retroactively. But so wherever you are on this scale is like that, this looking at how much of your life is up and down and where do you put those scales? Because you could do 80-20 and then live 80% in like the not so happy place and only
Yeah.
feel 20%. So the
Yeah.
50-50 is really like a nice line. I think
Yeah.
for anyone out there trying to think of something, I love that. Just like
Yeah.
just now, if nothing else, like
Yeah.
50% is going to
Yeah.
maybe be a flare or a down day, and 50% is going to be a great day.
Yeah.
So, and look at that over the totality of your life,
Yeah.
not just this week or not
Well,
just tomorrow,
and
right?
some totally, in some beliefs, I think 50-50 was good for me because nature. I love that it matches
Yeah,
nature.
nature. It's just night and day. Perfect.
Yeah. But like our parents or our grandparents or people above us likely planted seeds that they're there. Some of them like are the best. I'm so glad they're there. Like I grew up in a household where my mom walked around just loving aging. She was like, God, the 40s are the best, 50s are the best, 60s are the best, 70s are the best. And so now when I look, I'm like, I love aging. I am not trying to stop it. And I'm like, that just came because of repetition from someone saying it around me. And another one she gave me was that just drop your expectations and you'll be happier. And I'm like, so now I walk around, my husband he says it, he has very high expectations for himself and for others. And I see he's frustrated a lot. And so he's like, I'm like, I'm at peace a lot because I don't have many expectations of other people or for things to go a certain way. And so sometimes I just want to go back and like kiss and hug my mom to say, thank you for planting that belief seed so early because I don't even need to do any work on it. So sometimes we get lucky and we do have some, but seeing how it wasn't just an accident, it was repetition, and we may have gotten them from other people, can be a super enlightening thing to say, what am I believing that maybe someone just offered me that I want to let go of?
I love that. That's like such a nice honoring, and just that they come from our environment, they come from unknown places, and some
Yeah.
are like, this is very positive, but then it's like from your mom. So maybe if it's more negative about doing more or going
Yeah.
above or feeling like you have to, maybe
Yeah.
that's someone else's voice, and you can kind of let that go a little
Yeah.
bit easier and replace it with something that, you could say and find gives you
Feels
that
good.
peace and
Yeah,
the
so many people come in and they feel like they're being lazy. That's one that I think gets passed down, and I'm Midwestern, and so I notice that if someone calls me a hard worker, I get that like hit of yes, like I'm a hard worker. And that is one that I do have to sometimes break up with because I will not stop and rest. It's my most I call it my most neglected spoke because I have a hub of these six key areas, and it's the first one that it will get neglected because in favor of these other things. But just knowing that is also super powerful. And I have to say one that I think I started saying it earlier, but a belief seed that will help every single listener likely inhabit, if you've read Atomic Habits, which everybody has, it seems like, or Tiny Habits, we know this 2-minute rule or make a habit tiny. The belief seed that we plant, though, is not just that we can do smaller versions of things, but that we can trust in the tiny. Adding in the belief that on these tough days, on these bad days, on these pit days versus the peak days, still showing up and doing the tiniest version of whatever the thing you want to do and trusting that it is enough and trusting that that is where progress lives, is in those tiny, tiny moments, is a belief seed that I have watched countless clients who have done this with me. That's what blows their mind. They come in overwhelmed. They come in, there's so much I can be doing. If we're not doing tiny things, think about it. It's because we probably have this little voice saying, that's not going to make a difference. If we trusted that this tiny thing does make a difference, we'd be showing up for it left and right. So that's another, I feel like we're on a theme of belief
That
seeds.
is like
So
really like amazing because that really is the start of like just trusting. I mean, most of all my work and my life has been about helping people trust, feel
yeah,
safe and trust. And really those two things are the container you need. And let's go back to your beautiful planting of seeds. Like you really need that balance of fertilizer, all those things is chemistry, but
yeah.
safety and trust are two things that you actually need as a container to
The
feel
soil.
good enough to change and to grow and to make
Yeah,
these things a belief. And really, because stress is such a major player in spiking flares and progression of autoimmune diseases, to have a place where you actually could trust in your own body and
yeah,
trust your environment and feel safe,
yeah.
it really kind of always goes back to that. And to even like give them the soil to grow these seeds,
Soil.
right?
Yeah, imagine if you are with people that maybe aren't helping you grow it. That could be that's where the power of a community of like-minded people, that could be soil to nurture it, or even yourself. If you're planting a seed, in soil that is not exactly like you say, safe and trusting, then that is potentially the way we would do that in our habit speak is if we want to
Mhm.
feel more trust, if we want to feel safer, what are those thoughts and beliefs that allow us to feel it? And those are the ones that we want to nurture.
Oh, beautiful. And then you have a nice system, it sounds like. So then, okay, I need to do some more trusts. Like, so how can what does
Yep.
that mean for me? What is real for my body? Like, do
Yep.
I distrust everything or where am I in my trust scale? And then you could go and you give these. I like that you do it all things. You said that this is what I'm going to say today. This is part of what I feel today, but also this is what I've scanned for in the world, and this is something this belief is coming true
Oh,
because we
you're
do
so
that
right.
negative or
Yeah.
positive. We
Yes.
depending on our outlook, we can find something to prove our point no matter what. Even if they
Yes.
say, even if we
Yes.
believe the sky's purple, we're like, no, 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 but
Yes.
look, that place is purple, right?
Finding evidence cannot be skipped because like you said, it is out there. And that's our, reticular activating system if we want to get
Yeah,
fancy
we
with the
do.
brain. But yeah, it's looking for what we tell it to look for. So if we find that evidence and then, we celebrate it like kind of it really solidifies and keeps us going. So it's okay if you're listening and it feels a little bit like, does this really work? It's just that little bit of trust to try it and let your own body and brain tell you if it's working or not.
Because it's true. You're talking about like the systems that we have. Like we're always scanning to see if something is safe or not in our
Yeah,
environment.
yeah,
And then once we can only really dive into something, if we don't believe that it's true, then it's
yeah,
hard to make it part of us. So
yeah,
we're always scanning also for evidence for our thoughts. And
yeah.
there's you could talk a lot more articulately about all the
You're
different
doing great.
neurotrans like all the different things that happen in the body to make those
Yeah,
things true, especially
yeah,
with habits that are,
yeah.
because habits seem like a bummer word, but they're really not. Because same with
No.
discipline, because it's not,
Yes,
because then it seems you have to do
yes,
more, but actually it's just
yeah,
all of it is consistency and repetition.
yeah,
Really, if we take habit, we take discipline, and
yeah.
it's just do it and do it often.
Well, and it's funny you say that because I call them feel good habits because for that reason where how do we know it's the right habit? Does it feel good? Like there's no other because it turns out when things feel good, it's good for us. And we're talking so much about these like thought and emotional habits. Let's tie it back to why we're here. We want, potentially better health with an autoimmune disease. We want to ensure that we are doing everything we can. Emotions and feelings are the language of our cells. So all of our cells that make up all of our organs and our systems that may sometimes feel like they are failing us, the only language they speak is how we're feeling. So the more that we can habitually get ourselves into these feelings that have a chemical fingerprint of nurturing and love and trust and safety, the better those organs and those cells are going to function. So all of this is the inner work to get things working as they should be. So it all, yeah, it's all so tied together. But
It's all,
yeah,
and it's a very big piece of the autoimmune puzzle. It's
yeah,
not just going to the doctor and externally, but there is a lot of internal work that really is like, as you said, 50-50. It's probably more than that, but you really have to get your inner world at peace at some, and also strengthened to deal with doctors,
yeah,
to deal with things,
yeah,
to deal, to have a healthy way to have an outlook of like, this is
yeah,
part of your whole world. It's not separate from you and what
yeah,
that looks like. And I know you have a quiz to kind of
yeah.
help people along with that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So, like you said, even if you're going to the doctor a lot, let's say, 10 times a year or 20 times a year, 300 plus days a year, it's you and you, right? So,
Hmm.
health is built in between the appointments and the infusions and the lab visits. And so, a lot of people will say, well, where do I start? I mean, the overwhelm is real. We want to do it all. Trust in the tiny, though. So, I created a quiz. It's free, it's 7 questions. It takes probably less than 3 minutes. It pulls on the science-backed information to help give you the place that's likely best for you to start. And like I said, it pulls in what we know about where your desire is and where you feel like you could start, and it gives you permission. Drop the rest. Start there. So maybe it's in the way you're eating, maybe it's in the way you're moving, maybe it's in this mindset piece. Start there. And when you get your result, you'll get an email from me with how to actually do it. Like this is what I really want to be known for, the how, right? I guess that
Hmm.
goes back to the work behind it. But like the habit's great, and I'm glad that the quiz is going to give you that. But what we do with it next is the difference. So it's going to set you up for using what I call my ABC habit playbook, where I walk you through using these strategies we've been talking about. So you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to use this one. I'm going to practice this, and really just go all in on just one habit and see and feel the difference it can make when you make progress in that one area.
And even just as you're saying it, it sounds really exciting and like, oh my gosh. And then I get to do this. I see progress
Yeah.
because with autoimmune, I think I've said it a million times, you don't always get to see it's all these invisible illnesses, right? You don't really see it. Like if you break your hand or something, you kind of know and you take an x-ray and it's healing. It's hard to have a mirror back to really know how you're progressing with
Yeah.
things unless you have a community. But even then, it's like you also have to participate, right? So
Yeah.
there's also a lot of you that comes up. So how do you, it's everything's overwhelming. And
Yeah.
then you need to start like, oh God, do I want to start another habit?
Yeah.
Yes, you do, because this is more just as important, if not more important, is to like, how do you think about your life? How do you
Yeah.
think about you? What is your outlook? Because really, that's like, we can't change. It's hard to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have some habits in science, but
Yeah.
it's hard to actually change, and you can't
Yeah.
change anyone else. It's hard enough to change
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe you can't change your diagnosis. You have limits on what you can change, but what you can change is your perspective about it
Absolutely.
and how you feel about living, because you still wake up every day and you live this life. Like, how
Yeah.
can we squeeze what we
Yes.
can out of that to be just as joyful
Yep.
to balance out the other? Because
Totally. Yeah.
we're still going to wake up and be alive, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
let's not push our way into it. We need this is like the perfect new paradigm for this whole thing, because
Yeah.
pushing ourselves into it, making
Yeah.
ourselves make it happen, doing these things that take more effort, but
Yeah.
not actually aligned with our health
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
detrimental to all of us
Yeah.
autoimmune peeps. So How can people get in touch with you? How can they get into your world? For
Sure.
this one thing through the quiz, but if they just kind of want to go straight to your website or
Yeah,
join your
absolutely.
programs.
Yep. And on the website, it's www.amybeheimercoaching.com. And there's the quiz. There is a bit about the club, which is Club Habit Hub. And that is my comprehensive program where coaching with me, that community we talked about, curriculum, so you can learn a little bit about this stuff and have access to it. It's really a one-stop shop for better health with autoimmune disease. And I've really created it over the years to be exactly what I needed and now hopefully what others do, like kind of solving for all those reasons that goals fail. I also have a podcast. You're listening to a podcast, so maybe you like them. It's called Autoimmune Health Secrets. And spoiler alert, the best kept secret is that we aren't doing habits right. We need to do them that has this inner and outer approach, and we need to do it in a way that feels really, really good so that we keep doing it. So yeah, I would love anybody to come hang out and, use our diagnosis as a reason to change some things up. I always like to say, people are like, oh, what's something that, you think is the best advice or whatever it is. I always say, try something different, right? I mean, we want a different result and just really embrace that different is good. Maybe cutting down about all the things you could be doing and focusing on one. If that feels different, great. Different is good. If you've never worked with a coach, okay, maybe that's different. Different is good. Like try something different and you could just be amazed at what can happen.
Oh, I love that because the other thing that happens is like we do the same thing and expect a different outcome, and that
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
definition of
Yes.
insanity. So try something different, try something. It
Yeah.
could be, and different is good. I love that.
Different is
And
good.
I will have all of your show notes. Or all of those links in the show notes, and I'll send out also if you're on my email or in my other world, you'll get links to her quiz to make it
Oh,
nice and easy.
nice.
And I
We like
love,
easy.
yes, easy, easy, like not a
Simple and
lot of
easy.
figuring out. Easy is
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Um, so I really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much. I think this is such an important, not just that, have better thoughts, but the how to. So,
How?
Amy, let's just put it out there. You'll be known on your tombstone as the woman that showed people how to actually do the process to make the habits work. Like the
And feel good. And
and
feel
feel
good.
good and
Yes.
an easy, happy way to like, oh, we're going to make a new habit. And these are all the beautiful steps to
Yeah.
support us. And it's not a mystery. It's not getting up at 6 a.m. and
Mm.
doing these like
Yep.
very rigid, and you don't have a schedule that, unless you like that as that
Yes.
person,
If
but
you like it,
it's
if that
not
feels
just
good.
that.
Yep.
And if you're not that person, then you
Yeah.
have another alternative to
Yeah.
like how to also, it connects back to very holistic from listening to you is like you have to feel how you feel it in your body, and then it's kind of this upward spiral to make this happen in a
Yeah.
progression, because you started with saying that it took you probably a decade to get one of your seats to really feel like it was something that
Rock
was
solid. Yep.
like, yes, this is how I feel. So anyone listening, it's not something that's gonna, like, you don't do it for 3 days in a row and like, oh my God, it didn't work,
Yeah. We need a
right?
system. Yep.
We need
Yep.
a system, we need a support system, and we're going for the long haul for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
It's not just, and there's no end really, because there's
Yeah.
still a
Yeah.
refinement.
And
Because
don't worry,
you've
we'll pick.
even refined your
Yeah.
like a
Oh,
few
yeah.
times through it.
Yeah.
But
And we'll pick some win. You'll get some wins quicker for
yes,
sure. For sure.
100%.
Yeah.
But to know that this is, you could still get a lot of joy, and even if the
Oh, yeah.
goal isn't solidified.
Oh,
And I think
yeah.
that's an important part of coming back to your habits. So
Yeah.
I hope everyone goes out and checks out Amy's website, what I'll have linked, take her quiz,
Yeah.
get in her world. And are you on Instagram or do you do
I
social
am. I
media?
am at
Okay.
Amy Behimer Coaching on Instagram. Yep.
Okay. So,
Yeah. Great.
and her podcast. So
Yeah.
also leave links to that. And so again, thank you
Donna.
so much for this conversation. Is there any last words you would like to say, or
I think we
just
said a lot. I mean, yeah, I think we said a lot.
okay?
I'm going to leave it there and just love you and everything you do. And I don't even know you, listener, but I love you already. I love you.
Yes. Sending
Thank
lots
you.
of love to everyone.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and I'll see
Thank
you
you.
next time.
Bye.